Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Inspiration webinar. Inspiration Software is the embroidery software line of G7 Solutions. Our Inspiration software line includes My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, Perfect Embroidery Pro and Perfect Stitch Viewer, and the new Word Art and Stitches, and the new My Quilt Planner. Tonight's webinar is all puffed up and pretty. We have a wonderful team assisting us tonight. Inspiration Tech Support Team, Nancy R., Chris L., Dory N., and I would like to present you to our Inspiration Software Consultant, Katherine Artines, who will keep us in the world of pretty stitches with word art in stitches. Again, thank you for joining us and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Dory. Welcome, everyone. We've played with bubble text in 2 previous webinars, so tonight we will take a look at the other text features we are given. Some of you are not new to the text features in the software. If you have Word Art and Stitches, if this is your first venture with text, you will see some things brand new. Others of you that have perhaps played with your text in Perfect Embroidery Pro will see things that you might already know, but it's wonderful that you're here with the webinar. You can have your questions answered directly, and hopefully you will find inspiration whether you're brand new to the text features or revisiting the text features. We begin with the digitized scalable fonts with the very first button on our font toolbar. We'll click on that to add text. Notice that your mouse turns into the A. If I click anywhere on the screen, the letter A comes up on the screen. This is the default letter. You will see it each time you choose any of the text. As we take a look over here to the right of your screen, we have the text box in white and you see the letter A, and we also currently see the font that is being used, the Benquiet. If I click on that drop-down arrow, I will see all of the fonts available for us to use. I can scroll down through all of them. They are in alphabetical order. But another option that we have is simply to click on the white box itself. It brings us into the catalog where you see all of the fonts as they will stitch out. We like this. We are visual people. We embroider, we sew, we quilt. So we like to see things as they will be. This is a very nice way to choose your font. I'm going to stay with the one that I have, so I'll go ahead and cancel out of that box. And I'll come over here to my white text box and type in the phrase that we are going to play with this evening. Let me get a capital H going there. And we have our text. To bring it full to the screen, we come down and click on the Apply button, and here is our phrase. What I'd like to point out to you first is you see a number of symbols that are here. We have black diamonds that are with each of the individual characters. We see double-sided blue triangles that are in front of each of the characters, green dots, black squares, double black triangles. They all do something to your text. And not to worry if you don't remember what they do, simply play with them. For example, if we wanted to click on a black triangle for this letter P, that isolates the letter P so that we can control this letter individually by itself. We can rotate it. I'll put it back to normal. Let me turn on my 3D so you can see some pretty stitching. I could select that again, and I could size that individual character. In other words, it gives us control over whatever character you'd like. We also have these double-sided blue triangles. If I were to click on this one and drag over to the right, you see that I am adding space right where I played with those blue triangles. This comes in handy. We're going to use a lot of these symbols throughout this evening when we play with our text on path and circle text and so forth. We'll put that back. If we take a look, I'm going to back us out here just a little bit so you can see some difference. If we were to rest on this green circle and drag up, you see that this allows us to change the shape of the text. I can do the same with that bottom green button, sort of get a little football shape going on here. I'll go ahead and undo what I've done. We can play with these black corner handles. If I click and drag up, I get sort of a megaphone look here with the beginning of the text being taller than the end. I'll undo that and play with the other side, and you see we get the same look if we click and drag up. That just gives a different fun look if you're trying to emphasize some of your text in some way. We also have these double triangle black here in the corner. If I click and drag, you see that I am increasing the height of the text, either higher or lower. I'll go ahead and undo. And this other one in the bottom right corner, if I click and drag, here I am changing the width of the text. I can make it smaller, scrunch together a little bit more, or spread it out if I want. So all of those symbols play a part in our text for us to do a bit of editing to it. Something else I'd like to point out to you, you see the letter A is still part of my mouse. That is because we are in what's called the text edit. Once you have text on your screen, you notice that this first text button on the toolbar is still activated. It's pressed in, so we are in the text editing mode. If I were to come over here and click on our normal select that we use all the time, here you see again your normal select handles. I could pick that whole text up. I could size that text as I'd like to and do all the things I normally do with a select. I'll go ahead and put that back. If you want those symbols to come back up with it selected or not, you must first click on your text tool again and then click on the existing text, and now you have all of your symbols. That question appears frequently on the forum, so we'll answer that right off the bat. Let's come over to our properties and play with some of those that are here for us. The first thing we take a look at is this height in inches. You may notice that this height, 0.79, differs from the height that's up here on the upper bar that gives us information. It shows the height is 1 inch. The difference comes because this height right here on our property screen is representing the height of the capital letters. So in this case, the H's. If we were to come over here and click on our ruler and measure the capital H, we see that we are at the 0.79. The difference with this is this measurement up on our information bar reading 1 inch is the entire size from the uppermost portion of the text to the lowest portion. In this case, the Y and the P's have descenders, so it is measuring that entire size. So you will see a difference in that. Certainly, we could increase the size. If I were to type in a 1 inch, that's going to make the H's a 1 inch high and also changes our information bar to read the total of 1.27 inches. If we play with the space currently set to 0, this is representing the amount of white space that shows between each of the characters. This is called kerning and comes from the old typesetting days. We can go in and let's say I put in a 5% and apply it. You will see that it spreads the characters apart evenly across the text phrase. I can bump that up to a 10% if I feel I need to. But the idea is, yes, you can. And we'll see this in action throughout this evening. Let's skip our line spacing for the moment since we only have one line of text on our screen. You can play with the check boxes. The italic, if I apply it, we get a little tilt, such as we would in a printing font. If I click on the stairs and apply, I'm going to get a little offset in a downward motion. That's very fun. You can play with that as well. And I'll go ahead and apply it back to normal. And something else that is very fun is our initial percent. This is a new addition to word art and stitches, but it's very fun. Normally set to 100%. If I bump that up to 200% and apply, what it does is it gives us a very fun look on the first capital in the text itself. I'll go ahead and put that back to 100 and we'll apply. And the next thing I'd like to do, so we can play with some of these others, is to come up to our text box and change this from being a single line of text to a multiple line. So we have 2 lines. We'll apply that. You certainly, we simply add our Enter key. Whoa, that's way too big for you to look at any length of time. Back that out just a little bit more. And now we can take a look at our line spacing, currently set to 25%. And this line spacing is the amount of white space that's going to show up through the first and second lines and multiples if you have more. Currently set to 25, we can already see this situation where the P descenders are going below the D ascenders. So let's play with that for a moment, and we'll bump it up to a 50% and apply. And we can see that, yes, we got a little bit more white space in there, but they're still not clearing each other. If we bump that up to 75 and apply it, we have a bit more. So we'll leave it there for the moment and take a look at some of our other options. Right here we have the align, and this is very similar to what you would play with in a word processing software, where you would align your text if you want to center a heading. The default is to center each line, but what if we wanted to do a left align? And I hit apply, and you see that it has done that left align over here at the left. And we take a look again at that line spacing, and I really am very close in there. So I might even want to bump that line spacing up to maybe a 95% and apply it, and that gives me a better white space area. That's actually called leading, again from our typesetting days. We'll go back to align, change it to a right align, and hit apply, and you see, of course, what we expect to see is the text being aligned at the right. We'll go ahead and put that back to center and apply, and I bring your attention to this other box right here that says start at left. And sometimes people get this box confused with the alignment box. What this refers to is where the stitching will begin. The default is left. You might not have ever given it any thought to watch your text start at the left and stitch out, because that's the way we write in this western part of the world. But if we do a start at and we change it to center and apply, you don't see anything happen here on the screen, but let me show you what happens when we do our slow redraw and we click on that and begin. You see that the stitching actually begins in the center of our text, and it will then go to the left and go to the right to finish stitching. And let me speed that up a little bit while I do some talking, and you can see it stitched out, and this plays a nice part. This might be something that you'd like to choose. If you have very long lines of text, this is going to help tame that pull on the fabric. If you have long lines of text and each one are starting at the left side, you might notice some pull in your fabric. So this is one of the tools that we are offered to help guard against that. I'll go ahead and stop that, bring that back up, select my Happy Holidays once again, and at this point I want to go in and play with the sizing. I'll come in here to my height, and I'm going to make that a 3-inch lettering. And when I do, you're going to see a situation that happens that's called a split satin. Because of, you'll see it right here happening in the center of the satin. The default for text is satin. We have a couple different ways that we could deal with this, but in this case, instead of going into the split satin screen, I'm going to take you to a very easy fix for this, and that's to bring you into the fill properties, come here to your pattern, use your drop-down arrow, and we can choose something other than satin. I'll go ahead and choose brick and apply, And I happen to like this look. If you absolutely want to work with a large letter and satin is not going to be appropriate, then you can change your patterns. This is flatter, yes, than the satin, but it is great for baby and kids projects. You don't run the risk of snagging any satin stitches, and it gives you a little bit more of a modern look to your words. We can go in, corn is also a pretty one that I use quite frequently, but the idea is that you do have options if you want your text to be a little larger. All right, we'll go ahead and open a document or a file that I already have started for us and bring that to screen so you didn't have to watch me type so much this evening. And I have placed all of this text on the screen for us to work with. And what I want to show you here, this particular statement, text phrase, Frosty the Snowman, is done in an Arial, and the same phrase is done here in orange. But notice the difference. In the orange, everything is done in an uppercase, whereas in the blue, there are uppercase and lowercase. And what I wanted to show you here is when we apply an envelope shape. The envelope shapes are quite fun for you to play with. They give you a number of different looks to your text. If we come up here, remember that we have to come back to our text tool to get into the text editing. Now that I'm into text editing, I'm going to right-click, and one of the choices that I have for playing with text is envelope. You see all of the shapes that you can play with. I'm going to come down here and choose this double concave bridge. Click on that to apply it. And while I'm still in the text edit mode, I'm going to do the same for the blue Frosty. So I'll right-click, envelope, and I'm going to choose the exact same one so that I can make the comparison for you. Let's do that again here, and we're going to do a double concave. When we do that, I'm going to exaggerate the text a bit. Whoops, not there. I want to get my normal select tool so that the concave bridge stays in place. But here with my normal handles, I can size that to exaggerate that bow of the text. Let me do it with the orange one as well. I'll get that handle and drag down. And what I wanted to show you here is when you are playing with those envelope shapes, notice that if you have all caps, that envelope shape is going to be better defined than if you have an upper lowercase situation. The reason for that, you see that the high is at the first letter and last letter. They are the same height to begin with, so we get that same height, and then you actually see the dip. But when you're dealing with height of capital and lowercase, you actually lose some of that shape. So that's one tip that I can give you. Here's another. If I zoom in on our two Frosty boxes, sometimes you will want to put your text in one text box. As we see here, I've typed all of these 3 lines into one box, Frosty the Snowman. Over here in our white text box, the entering is causing those multiple lines. Yet here, I have chosen to put each of these parts of the phrase in separate text boxes. And what this shows you is that if you have multiple text boxes, you actually have more control over the individual pieces and parts. Whereas here, if I make a change and I change a color, right-click on purple, the whole thing has to change. If I come over here and click on Frosty and I choose to make him blue for snow, I can have 3 different colors if I want. I can also change the font. We see it as the Bauhaus, but in this particular word, I have it set as a cursive. And then going back to the Bauhaus. In 3 different boxes, I can play with placement of the words, however creative you'd like to be, but the idea is, yes, you have some options if you do multiple text boxes. You'll see some of that happen later this evening. I'll get my magnifying glass again and zoom in on the Happy New Year, and in this case, the teal color is one box, the gold color is done in 3 separate boxes. Here is why I might choose to do it in a multiple situation. If I have a script like this and I want those characters to come together, remember over here in spacing where we used a positive number to spread them apart? Well, you can also use a negative number. If I type in a -10 and apply it, it's going to apply to the entire phrase because that's one text box. And you can see that it looks okay with happy, but maybe this E and W and the R and the exclamation point don't need to be spaced that tightly. Whereas here, if I use individual boxes, I can do my happy at a -10 and apply it, and then maybe play with my new and have that only be a -5 for that particular letter combination. And also remember that I can come up here to my text tool, click on that, and I get back all of those text edits. I can click on the blue double triangles and I can tuck that EW a little closer to the N. If I do the same with year, I can change that maybe to a -8 for my spacing, apply it, and then also get that blue double diamond and tuck that out a little bit. I could even take my blue here and spread out my exclamation point a little farther than the character. So the idea of having multiple text boxes gives you a bit of more control. We want to tuck that back into our tips about text. The other thing that I want to encourage you to, in this case, not do, if you take a look at this statement down at the bottom, this is a text phrase that is typed in all caps using a script font. And it was something that I would encourage you strongly not to do. It is very difficult to read, and I would encourage you to don't do it either in embroidery or typing. Very difficult. At this point, we'll go ahead and open up one more play screen before we stop for questions, and this one will be with our circle text. Again, I have done a lot of the typing for us so that we can move right into the play, and I'll back out just a little bit here. The phrases are done differently. This particular phrase, all one text, that is from start to finish, all one box. Here I have deck the halls as one with boughs of holly as a separate, and in this case I have it as one text box, but it is done as 2 lines to show you what options you have when we play with circle text. Choosing the first one, let's come over into our properties and we take a look right down here that says type normal. Let's use that drop down and choose circle. We will apply it, and what happens is it's going to go off the screen because it's creating a large circle, but in this situation we see that phrase arc as if it is at the top of the circle. If we come over and click back on our text edit, we see indeed that it is part of a very large circle, and at the moment this radius is 7.4, almost 7.5 inches, so this circle is very large. Where did I get that radius information? Please look down here at the bottom left of my screen. The moment I move my mouse down on it, it's going to disappear, but it's going to be down here at your status bar. If I go ahead and click on that pink, notice in that bottom left corner, again, the radius is 7.46. A little math lesson here. Your radius is from the center point to the inner circle, any point of the inner circle. So it's half the distance. Radius is half the diameter. We can play with our circle if we come over here and get our pink circle in the middle at the bottom, and I drag down. You see that I am changing the radius of the circle, and I can bring it in as tight as I'd like it. And if I were to grab that top gold and drag out, oops, let me back out here and show you what we're doing. We'll put it back to normal, and I drag that gold circle. You can see that in this large of a circle, it is spreading out the characters. It is making them larger, taller, and wider at the same time, so it's spreading them out in a larger circle. If I were to come over here to my gold circle and click and drag, you can see that I'm spreading out horizontally. The letters themselves are spreading, but the circle is staying the same height. Once again, you do not have to memorize all of these buttons. You simply click on them and play with them to see what they do. We have one left that's over here with our green dot. If I click on that and I drag in, I am making an oval that is vertical. If I click and drag out, I am making an oval that is horizontal. So at this point, if you had something large inside your circle, you might want to extend your circle text into more of an oval situation. I'll go ahead and put that back, and what I'd like to do here, we'll bring that back to what it was originally, and let me just simply drag that circle down a little smaller, and it is all fitting into the circle itself. And at that point, I can use my own rotate, and I can have it start at the bottom, or if I rotate a little bit more, I can have the text start at the left, and then the reader would need to read around the circle. So you have one option. If I take this deck the halls and I come over here again to our type, use our drop down and choose circle and apply, it's only going to go to the top of the circle. That is the default. All of the things are going to be available in that circle as we just played with in the first one. But at this point, if I click on the with boughs of holly and I come over back and set our type to circle, but this time we want to use this particular box that says reverse direction. I'll put a check mark in there and apply it, and this is what we do to get to the bottom of our circle. I drag that up so you can see it. This is the hint or the trick if we want to bring the text at the bottom of the circle. Again, this blue one, we simply did the normal circle. The bottom one we did by using this reverse direction checkbox. If I click on my double lines of type and I come set my type to circle and apply, it will automatically take my circle and put the top line on the top of the circle and the bottom on the bottom. So you have different options on how you want to create your circle text, all of which are very fun. And this pretty little candle is part of your free designs that you get right here from your text designs. So circle text can be quite fun. We'll take a moment here and ask Dory, do we have any questions coming in?
Yes, we do. We have our friend Betty, who's been asking some really good questions. And one of them is, can you change the column width in lettering? Because what would you recommend if I was going to put something like a circle with fleece?
Okay, I'm not understanding the question meaning column width. Are you talking about the size of your text? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I believe she's discussing how fat the deck the halls is.
The actual, okay, as if we did it in a word processor and we use the bold?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, we don't change the bold we have no bold choice here, but if you were to look in your font options, you will see that some of them are thicker than others. And this would be where I would go, and this is the beauty of this software, is that you have so many choices that, for example, this impact, if we were to change that, do you see how thick that looks? Now, that might even be too thick. Remember, let me zoom in here a little bit so it's a little better for you to see. But that might be too thick for a fleece situation, but that's where you're going to go to change the thickness or the bold. You have the ability to change, let me go in and pick a different one and I'll show you something else that you can do, is for example, this Giddy Up, it's a fun one. It's not very thick. This would not be a good choice for fleece, but it's really a fun one on cotton. If you were to come over here to your fill, you do have the ability to change the density which will make it look just a little thicker, not a lot, but if I bump that down to a 0.4 and change, you see where the text or the stitching itself has filled in a little bit more. So yes, you can change density. The lower the number, the more threads that'll be laid down in the area. But as far as changing the bold, we don't really have that choice as we do in a word processor.
Okay, excellent. And that was a very excellent question, Betty.
It was, Betty. Thank you. Yep, many people ask that.
Can we take a quick little sidebar, take a trip up against the menu top? Can you show everybody what the eye is in the middle, the blue eye? Yes. Can you click that?
Click on,
There you go.
This is the button where if you need to know what version you have, do you have the current version, here is the version number right in here. So you can check to see indeed if you are up to date.
And it also allows, yes, and it also
Yes.
allows people to go to the website.
Correct. A direct connect to our Inspired by Dime. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And can you also show them how to check to see if you've got the latest, greatest update? Under Help?
Excuse me. Thank you.
Yes. That's okay.
We're going over here. Right here, check for updates. Very easy to do. All of this is built right into the software. So if you want to see what is current, you simply click on that and it will say, what do you know? I already have the latest version of the program. If you did not, the message would indicate that and give you the button that you need to take you where you need to go to download the newest version.
Super. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, we are now going to play with text on path. Again, I have a document started for us so that we don't have to spend a great deal typing, but the same thing to do any of these phrases that I have on our screen, I simply clicked on my text tool, clicked on the screen, and typed these individual boxes. I'm going to back out just a little bit so you can see what we are going to play with here. And this is something that there have been numerous questions about because it's very fun and we want to know how to do this. It's called text on path and there are two ways, excuse me, there are two ways that you can do it. The first way I'm choosing to show you is to come up here to your artwork tool. We'll click on our drop down arrow and choose pin. I'll come to the side of my first phrase and I'll simply click and draw what looks like a path. I'll right click to end it, come over here to my select tool. The path that I've just drawn is selected. I hold down my control key and select the phrase that I want to apply to that path. A right click in there and I now am given this offer of text on path. I see that because this piece right here is artwork. You will only see text on path if indeed you have a piece of artwork and a text box chosen. I'll go ahead and click on that and it applies my phrase to the shape of the path. And as we first look at this, it's not very pretty. Let me take it out of the text edit mode so you can see it because we have a couple situations right here. This split is awkward. We have text over text right here. That's not appropriate. So to fix that, I'll go back into my text editing mode and if I right click on this, I am now given this edit baseline. You will only see this when you have text on path on your screen. I click on that and it shows me only the points where I clicked on the screen. If you remember, I clicked here, went up and clicked, went down and clicked over here and then did a right click to end. I can now edit these points or nodes. If I rest on one and right click, come down and choose smooth. I'll do the same for this lower one and choose smooth. And it's really just those two that I am concerned with at the moment. And then to get that to apply to my text, Our first instinct might be to go back over here to the Apply button, but that's not what we do in this case. This is a little different. You actually are going to click anywhere on the text, and you see it then applies itself, that editing the baseline is now applied to our phrase and looks much softer. Okay, let's try this one with our one-horse open sleigh. Our second option, instead of drawing the path with our text or artwork tool, let's come over here to our properties text box, and where we went under type normal, this is where we just played with circle text, we're going to come down and choose path and apply. But at this point there's not much of a up and down situation. So we come back into text edit mode. I see my line which indicates the path. I'm going to right click, come down to edit baseline. Here is the one point that I've been given. I can click and drag that as I'd like. I can also come over here and I can add a point wherever I might think it would be appropriate, and if I wanted a little bit more of a bend here, I could add that point and maybe drag that line up. Remember, to apply it, you simply click anywhere on the text itself, and it will now apply my text to my path. My path doesn't even have to be that long, but when I select it or come out of the select altogether, we don't see the path at all anymore. So we have another fun little path. But you can see where we're going with this. Depending on what you are stitching out, you can give movement to your text, which is very professional. That gives a very fun look to your text, and once again you are making something that is unique. Let's get our third phrase, and here I want to show you something with a caution. All right, we had our first way and our second way. The first one was with the art tool, the second was just with the type tool over here. And in this third situation, I'm going to come back up here to artwork, get my pen, and very often when we are new, we really want to give it a very fun path to use. So I've given many hills and valleys in this particular situation. I'm going to select both of them. I could use my control key. I also can click and drag around both, do a right click, text on path, and I'm going to get things that are not attractive, especially in this inside corner right here. And this is to help you guard against making things that are very, very defined, very sharp points. So we definitely want to go into our text edit and right click, edit baseline, and soften those points, smooth them out. And what I might even do at this point, I certainly can delete that when I don't need it, and might bring this in a little shorter. You see the dip on that? That's still going to give me problems. So I am definitely going to soften that valley and maybe a little more of a dip going over. Now click on my text anywhere, and you can see I still have a little bit of a situation here. Let's go ahead and zoom. Remember I told you that these black diamonds and the blue double triangles are going to come in handy, and we see it right here. We can fix this a little bit by moving out some of our text or moving the text over just a little bit. I can then grab just the letter E and move it away from the L, and maybe move that L just a little bit over, so that you can see that these symbols help you tweak your text on path very often. And again, the more you play with it, you might have the chance to work with that even more. This might even be a little bit too curvy for me. I probably would soften that even a bit more. The other thing I want to show you, something that you can do, but it will be up to you whether you want to or not. Here's our last phrase. If I come back up to our artwork and I choose any of those shapes, this time I'm just choosing our triangle, and I click and drag a triangle, and I want to select both the triangle and my phrase, right click, text on path, and you can see what we have here is maybe not what you are after. One of the things when we work with an art shape, we cannot control where that beginning of the drawing stops and starts. So at this point, this is where the triangle started its drawing. The software created that. We didn't have control over it. One of the tricks we can do to do some editing to this is I can come over here. Do you notice how in this instance, let me zoom in there for you to see just a little bit. Do you see in this instance where the L does not have a blue double triangle? So there's no way that I can move the L. I can only start moving with the A and move that back. Right. The trick is to come over here in your text box and type in the space from the space bar and apply that. And what that does, do you now see I have a blue double triangle that I can click and drag and control a little bit of where that might start. Now this line is too short for the L to come up on that line as well, but we can scoot that around if you wanted it to break. Let me get that blue. Sometimes I've got to get in there and play with it. And at this point, it's gone around the text. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me grab this one. It's the one I want. And I can wrap that laughing all the way, but you see that it is now going to bunch up at the top. So sometimes, I did this on purpose to show you that sometimes what you're allowed to do, you might not want to do because the editing is takes longer than you might want to apply to that. So you might try a different type. Perhaps draw your triangle yourself with your pen, leaving it open, and then you'll have more control. When we start to play with text on path with shapes, it always brings us into the question, can we work with our bubble text with our text on path? And we absolutely can. We'll come in here to holiday first with Christmas, and I'm going to start with the candy cane. And the trick to this is it must be artwork. We learned that earlier, that when you work with text on path, the other shape must be artwork. I'm going to leave that, and all I need to do is come down here and OK, and that artwork will come on screen. If you take a quick peek over here in sequence, you see that yes, indeed, it is artwork. Now let's put some text on the screen. I'll type in my phrase that I want. I'm going to start with some ellipse here and type in the phrase, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. We need something long here, so that seemed to work, and I will go ahead and apply it. And we see that the text is on the screen. I'm going to do just a few alterations to my text. I'm going to make it a bit smaller for 0.7 and going to go in and get a different font that I know that will work well. We'll do our Bauhaus. I like this font, and I think for the moment that's going to work for us. We'll go ahead and select both of them. One of the easy ways I can do that, since there's only two things on the screen, is I can either click the color, since they're both in the same color, or I could have clicked on all items, right-click, text on path, takes just a moment to render, and then because this is a candy cane, I'm going to go in and choose red instead of my black. All I did is click on that black, and I come back into it. Let's turn on our 3D so we can see it, and that ends up to be very fun. It has taken the shape of our candy cane and playing with the size ever so that that particular phrase fits very nicely around our candy cane. Something else you'll notice is that when we came out of the text editing screen and we just have a normal select, do you see that the candy cane is no longer visible? Remember, that is artwork. It was not our run or our steel stitch, so it will not show in the final stitching. All right, let me drag that over here out of our way. We know that came in very pretty. Let's go do that again. We'll do our bubble text and come into the kitchen this time. the only kitchen I really like to enter. We'll go ahead and choose glass, and I'll bring this wine glass to screen. Again, we'll leave it as artwork. We OK it. The artwork is brought to screen. And this time for my text, I'm going to type in wine a bit. You'll feel better. And a little tweaking here. I have the font that I want. I am going to drop that down to a 0.5. And I'm going to spread that out just a little bit with my spacing with a 10. And I'll go ahead and apply that. I will turn that back to black by right-clicking on my black. And now I have my text chosen. I'm going to hold down my Control key and select the wine glass also. Right-click, text on path, and we see it apply to the glass. Now once again, we see the situation where we do not have control the first time, the first placement of where this starts. You might like this look. This actually comes in pretty cute when it starts at the top, but my sample that was on the opening screen is a little different. We'll come back into that. When I go back into text editing, we see the shape of the wine glass. First of all, we're going to come over here and do that trick and put a space in front of the W for wine and apply it. And that gives me this starting blue that I can then drag the text over to the side. And you see that I don't have to drag very far, and it will come over here. And I can spread that out just a bit so that the text is hugging the glass. If I zoom in and take a better look, I see that some of my text here is close together even though I have the 10% space, but it's because of the curves. So I might want to use some of this editing with my diamond and move that W down a little bit. And then if I take the rest of that blue and space out just a bit more, and again, I might want to bring my B down, just a little bit of editing, and maybe spread that out just a little bit for my T and so forth. And again, it depends on you how much editing that you want to do. Now in this case, again, we know that the only thing that's going to stitch out is that shape. Here we can't really tell that that is a wine glass, so what I would do is come back into our bubble text. I would go back into kitchen glass and get that same wine glass, but this time ask it to be run. I'll remove any text. Certainly you could type your text in there, as we know we can do with our bubble text. I'll apply that and then bring it to screen, and what happens is I now have my text on the shape of the artwork, but because I did not alter the size or any of that with my wine glass, I now have the run stitch for my wine glass, and I can move that out just a bit, and I have a very fun beginning of a personalized gift. So very fun with your text on path. There's one other one that I want to show you so I can give you some caution with this. The two that I had chosen were specific to let you be successful in the very first try, but if we go back to holiday and we pick something like our Christmas tree, we leave it at artwork, we bring it to our screen, we take our text and type our phrase on screen. I need something relatively long here, so I will type in oops, it's a little longer phrase, and I'm going to change that to a 6 and maybe a 10% spacing and apply that. I'll select both, right-click, text on path, and what you have here is a bit of a mess. And the reason for that is because this artwork is so very detailed with its branches and so forth of the tree and the star. And the text is following those indentations, which is fun for the bubble art, but not fun for text on path, because these characters are now jumbled in and out of all of those branch shapes, and it would take quite a bit of editing to get this right. We could try the option of shifting where that text rests on a line, whether it's above or below the line. Here you see now it's on the outside of the tree, but it's still backwards and upside down and jumbled, so that's not going to work for us as well. So let me do an undo back to where I just have my two pieces, my artwork and my text, and this is what I would do to use this Christmas tree. Come up here and get my pen from artwork, and I would draw my own shape. I'm going to have to come, okay, and click with my 3 points, right click to end it. I'm not going to be concerned right now that this is overlapping the tree, and now I will select that artwork and my text, right click, text on path, and you see that it now follows the shape of the tree a little better. And even if I come down here and maybe size this down to maybe a 0.55 and apply, that's going to shorten my text a little bit. Let's take a look at it in 3D. And remember that even with this text, the path not so nicely drawn, I can always go into right-click, edit the baseline. I can bring that point up a bit from the star, and I also can right-click and add points to bring it just a little further away from that star. And I could even add more points down here to bring those in just a little to give the look of the branches. And that allows me to get the look of the tree without having all of those indentations and so forth with all of the branches. And I might even need to, come over here and click on my text so that it applies, and then I get a little different look to my tree. And if we take some of that symbols out. Now, it's uneven. If I select it again and go back into my text and I put in my space trick in front of my we and apply, that gives me the ability to move this text around just a little bit, and if I move it up, I now have a better split. My text is even on this side, and I'm happy with that look. So that's a trick that you can use with your shapes in bubble text, and you have to decide what shape you're going to use and if it will work, if it's too detailed for your text on path, and really how much time do you have to edit that. All right, having done that, Dory, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have one really good question. Our friend Helen wants to know, can you convert from artwork to run in WAS?
From this point, if I take that artwork, that tree, there's no option that I can convert. We do not have a convert here. But if you are talking about bubble text, right in our bubble text screen, we have that option for any shape that we choose, and I'll just go again and choose that tree since that's up on the screen. We can come in here and choose our option right here for border in making it a run stitch. If I do that, and I'll just type in some words that might go with our tree and apply and bring that to screen, we are allowing that tree now, I'll move it out of the way from our other text, this tree, that black line is a run stitch and will stitch, and if I ungroup it, I can select just the outline, come over here to the run, and my choices are two-ply, bean, and different repeats and so forth. But if you are talking about the artwork that we use here, with our diamond, triangle, rectangle, ellipse, and so forth, that remains artwork. And it's artwork that we can use with our text on path and so forth. There is no right-click convert option to make that a run.
Super. Thank you. That was exactly what I wanted.
Good. Well, take a look now. I am watching the time here, and we have some other things to take a look at. First of all is Puffy Text. If we click, I've chosen the Puffy Text button on the top toolbar, and we bring this to screen and take a look at it. The very cool thing about Puffy Text is this, all of these fonts, if we take a look at the fonts that are available, we have 13 of them. These fonts have been specifically digitized for Puffy Foam. And when I say Puffy Foam, I mean foam that has been specifically made for this feature. This is embroidery foam. It is not craft foam. Here are two makers, very reputable makers of embroidery foam. It is made so that it is a different density, it is higher, it's made to perforate cleanly, no distortion, so do make sure that you use embroidery foam for this process. If you've never seen it, this is what it looks like when it's stitched out. You actually stitch, you have two stitches, the one lays down the stitching on the bottom, you apply your foam and it stitches over that, and again specifically digitized because of the density. If we look back at this Puffy Foam on our screen and we come into the area Properties Fill and look at our densities, this density, the first one listed, is a 0.5 default. That is for the blue stitching that goes down first. If you take a look at this density 2, this is the density for the last stitching or upper stitching that will go over the foam, and look how dense that is. It's a 0.1. Remember, the smaller the number, the more threads in the area. To actually complete this process, we would go to our machine. The text stitches out the bottom layer first. You would have your embroidery foam, maybe a little spritz of temporary spray. You also want to try and match the color of your foam to the color of the upper thread that you will be using. Lay your foam over. It will stitch out that upper color. When you are ready, gently remove, pull up on that foam. Because this is the appropriate foam and this has been digitized specifically for it, you get a very nice edge on that. Should you have little pokies, you can see some green foam here. I used green because I had green thread. You can see them better right here. You can take a heat gun and give it a little puff or two from your heat gun, and that stick-out foam will just simply shrink up right inside your thread so you get a nice look. I have to confess, I never used Puffy Foam before, but I love it. This is an actual stitch-out that I did, created for the holidays, and have it in my room, where the Puffy Foam word is inside the bubble text. So I did do a little bit of editing to get that look, but it is quite lovely. We have also, in addition to your Puffy Foam, you have your micro font foam, or your micro fonts. And if we take a look at the difference in here with our micro fonts, this is a normal, put that back to 100 so you can see it. This is a normal default 20 millimeter. This line right here with the orange, teal, and blue shows you your options when you do micro fonts. You have the option of 6 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and you can see how very small that is. This is wonderful if you are doing some kind of stanzas, a recipe, a poem, something like that with your microfonts. What I caution you with your microfonts, you must bring logic to your project. A size 65 needle, size 9 needle, you want to use a 60 weight thread. Think of what you're asking the embroidery machine to do, and also your focus fabric. Keep that in mind. Again, bring logic. You don't want to do this type of thing on a understabilized t-shirt or a very open weave, but on linens and quality cottons and so forth, these things are lovely. So again, you have your option there. If we do our calligraphy, I'm going to choose that button and come over here and type the letter O to show you what beautiful options we have with our calligraphy. I'll go into my ribbon love fonts. You can see all of the 13 fonts that we have for calligraphy. This mono number 24 is beautiful. I'm going to choose this fancy script. I'll double click that and come over here. In this particular micro font, you can see that I use the Empress Small. I'm going to delete the letter O and apply, so my little stanza line comes back, and this time I'm going to take my letter O that is done in calligraphy and bring that up, size it much larger, and place it just so, and you can see what fun you can have with your calligraphy by using it with just one letter. Now here we're back to this is a separate text box, and you can do fun things with that. You could even make it larger and size it. I probably wouldn't want to change the color of that as well so it blends in, but this raised cap is a very professional look with typesetting and Photoshops and things like that. So it's a very fun look to give your embroidery. If we take a look at some of the other option we have with that, this is also, you saw this on your opening screen, your Merry Christmas. This is that calligraphy mono 24, and look how lovely that is if you have that in a separate box. Just to refresh you, here we have a poem, actually a very fun poem for kids all over everywhere at this time of year. Don't forget this initial percentage cap. This is a very fun tool that you have. If I type in a 250 and bump that up, it's going to change that uppercase to give us that same type of look of a raised cap. And finally, you have your applique choices where we could choose our fonts and come into our available fonts that we have there. And we have 10 of them. They're the different choices that you have. I'll go ahead and stay with Hobo. Come over here and type text, whatever we want. I'm going to use our brand new year that's coming up with our 2016. Put that in 3D. Drop that down a little bit so you can see. And when you play with your applique fonts, not only do you have all of your options here in your properties text, but take a look, you also are given another properties window specifically for your applique where you can come in and change the width of your applique. If you want to drop it down a little bit to a 3 or a 2.5, you can also play with your density to make it tighter or less by using your number in this area. Here you have a placement line, tack down line. By default, all of this is one color. If we were to look at our slow redraw and we see the all of that we have there is all just one color blue, both the placement line and the tack down line and the satin are all one color. Your option over here, if we choose our text and you have the back into our applique window, you have the ability right here to change colors and apply. And even though we don't see it on the screen, if you take a look in your slow redraw, you will see that all of your tack downs are now in a different color. So that will help you with your stitch outs and so forth. The other thing to point out with your applique is, yes, we have this beautiful satin stitch, but you can also choose from your E-stitch and apply that. So you have that, let me bump that up just a little bit so you can see it. So that this is the traditional E-stitch that you might do on a sewing machine, and the bite of that thread is coming into the applique fabric. You can play with that by using your inset. The default is 50. If I were to put in a higher number, the bite is going to be closer into the fabric, and that might be the look you want. Also with this E-stitch, notice the bite in this circle right here, how the bite is going into the hooped fabric, not the applique. So the trick there for you is to come over and this button right here, your adjust holes, we apply it, and then the bite of that E-stitch is going to go into the applique fabric, which is probably the look that you want. You also have motif that you can apply. If I were to look at 124 and apply that, whoa, we have way too much pattern length, so we come over here and change the size from a 6 to a 2 and apply, and look how pretty that is as well. So your applique built in maybe specifically for your applique. You can get a lot of large characters and so forth. These are 2 inches high. You can go even larger, but the idea is, yes, you can. Now, this evening there were a number of things that we touched on, the fun part of the word art and stitches, what's different in there that you might not see other places, but there were some text areas, some information that I did not cover. You can always go back to previous webinars. These 2 webinars, the February one, and I captured the look of that screen for you to find it easily on our YouTube channel. These were done for Perfect Embroidery Pro, but the information that I have in both of these, a lot of it applies to word art and stitches as well. So you can find more information there on the properties of texts, like the split satins that we ran into, some additional hints for your text, and working with your TrueType fonts as well. I'll do more with TrueType fonts next year in word art and stitches. But the idea here is that with all of these webinars that you are given, the information does cross over. Even though you might not own Perfect Embroidery Pro, they are similar, and the information, some of it is basic to all software. So you can go, you have such a library of information here with all of the webinars on our YouTube channel. So I hope you take advantage of that. Okay, Dory, do we have, I apologize for the extra 5 minutes or so. Dory, do we have any questions that I can address here before we leave?
Yes, just one quickie.
Sure.
I want you to know that Puffy Text, I have not been successful in my Puffy Text.
Oh.
What thickness would you recommend for me to work with?
The most, when we are talking about Puffy Text, and remember we talked about you want to make sure that you are using professional grade, the embroidery foam. The most popular weight is a 3 millimeter, but they do come in a 2 millimeter. They go as high as a 4. But if I were you, if you were having some issues to start with, you might want to try the 2 millimeter and then go through that process and see what you have. At first, I would not adjust any of the defaults for the letters themselves. I would play with the little smaller weight of your foam first, and then if you still find a situation, you can maybe go in and tweak some of your Puffy Foam. It would depend on what issues you are having as far as not being successful. Puffy Foam, again, I have to say I've never used Puffy Foam in previous years that I have been embroidering, but now that I played with it with this new word art and stitches option, I think I will be doing quite a bit with it. I like it a lot.
All right. Well, I thank you very much, and you have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone, for attending and staying right to the very last minute. It's been gripping.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.